Good morning everybody, happy Monday. I hope you've had a lovely weekend and are raring to go. So today we're going to be looking at our introduction paragraph to introduce our letter and tell our the person you're writing to a little bit more about it. So looking at the Waggle, we've got our introduction paragraph. I've only broken it down to the introduction because that's all we're going to focus on today. Now before we get started, I want you to think about what you can see in the introduction paragraph. So I want you to pause the video now, have a little look. What do you notice to do with the format and the setup that we've got here, and also what is included in an introductory paragraph? So you've just had to think about this question: what do you need in an introductory paragraph? So you might have come up with some ideas. You need to say the address, because that starts it off. Then we need to say who we're writing to, so dear and whoever we're writing to. To make it a little bit more informal, we could always put to rather than dear. Then we've got some other features in there, so we're going to really break that down now. So looking at the introduction paragraph, we can see the first thing that we have got is a question. How are you both doing? Now this is an informal question because you're wanting to know, you're writing it to somebody that you know, that's a family member. It's asking them how they're doing, it might be asking them what they've been up to. Then we've got an opinion, so we've got here where it says I am missing you both very much. So that's an opinion, that's telling you how you're feeling about it. We've then got something here which we're going to be going on to a little bit more shortly. We've got something here, especially all the amazing chocolate cakes you make. They are delicious. Now that there is giving somebody a compliment, so we call that flattery. So we're going to have a look at that next and see how we can really think about how we could put that into our letters. Then we've got, then it says, don't worry about me. Now putting something like this really makes you feel, the person you're writing to, a lot more calm and relaxed, because they know that they don't need to worry about you. So it's saying, and then we've also got another opinion. I am great. It's saying how you're feeling. Then it says, I've been working hard over the last few weeks completing different maths and literacy activities, and now I can tell the time. What do you think that sentence there is doing? So have a pause, have a think. What do you think that sentence there is doing? So thinking about that, that is telling your reader what you have been doing. So it's giving your reader some idea of what you've been up to in these last few weeks. So it's giving them a little bit of information. Then Sarah has put, this was a real challenge for me, but through perseverance, I finally achieved my target of telling the time using an analogue clock. So during this time, it's telling the reader what they've learned. So it's saying, this is what I've been learning, and actually, now I can really understand it. And then finally, the paragraph finished with, who would have thought that there are different types of clocks? So that there is also similar to an opinion. It's saying that now that she's learnt all this, she now has an idea of something that she didn't know before. So we're going to have a go at breaking this down even further now, and then you're going to have a go at writing your own paragraph. So I've just touched on flattery. Now I'd like you to think about what I've just said and also have a little read of the Waggle again. What is flattery? So I want you to pause the video, have a think, have a discussion. What do I mean by flattery? So flattery is an act, or the act of giving somebody a compliment. So telling somebody something that will make them feel good about themselves. And the impact of this is that it makes them want to read on, because once they feel good about themselves, it makes them want to continue. So I'd like you to first of all think about a family member, and I want you to think about something that, if you gave them a compliment, if you said something nice to them, what would make them feel good? You could even have a go at doing it to your parents now, or your siblings. It could be something along the lines of, oh, I really like your hair today, just to make them feel really good about themselves, really positive and really smiley. Okay, so how could you flatter your grandparents? Or if you're writing to a friend or a cousin or a different family member, how could you flatter them? How could you give them a compliment? It could be, what do you like most about them, or what do you like to do with them? So it could be that you really like their hugs or their kisses, or their baking and cooking, or the way they read you books, or the way that they dress. It could be something as simple as that. So I'd like to now have a think about the person you are writing to. What could you say to them which you really like about them, or that would make them feel good about themselves? Okay, so we're now going to have a look at rhetorical questions. So you might have heard of a question before, but have you heard of what a rhetorical question is? I want you to just have a think about what a rhetorical question might mean, and then pause the video and then we'll discuss what that is. So a rhetorical question is a question you ask where you don't expect the answer. So it makes the reader think. So it's more getting the reader to think about it than actually having an answer. So for example, if you actually wanted to know what was for tea, you could say to your parents, what is for tea? And they would give you the answer, oh, for tea we're having spaghetti bolognese. However, you might ask some other questions which don't necessarily need an answer. It's more of a question, or you're trying to make a point of it, and you want your reader to think. So we're going to have a look at some examples now. So here are some examples of when you could use a rhetorical question. So it could be like, why is this happening to me? You're not actually wanting the answer, you're just you're making the reader or the person you're talking to think. Does money grow on trees? Is this a joke? It might also be that you start with one of the following. Do you think that? Don't you think that? Isn't it time to? Have you ever thought about? Why not? Need a? Need to? Fancy? Fed up with? Bored by? Haven't you always longed for? Thought about? Worried about? So these are some you might want to use to start your questions. Alternatively, you might want to ask some questions linked to how are you doing? How are you feeling? Which would also get the reader to think, or get the person you're talking to think about the answer. So I want you to now do a spider diagram, and I want you to think of questions that you could use. So what questions could you use in your letter to ask your grandparents or your cousins or your friends, whoever you are writing your letter to? What question could you ask them? So it could be, I hope you are well. How are you doing? How are you feeling? So I'd like you can use my two as an example on your spider diagram, but I'd like you to come up with about another 3 or 4 questions each. So I'd now like you to have a go at writing your introductory paragraph. So just this part here, not to get too carried away. So just for the first part, I want you to write who you're writing to. So dear grandma and granddad, or to a cousin, or to family friend. Remember, we need capital letters for the names of people. You could also write to if you want to make it a little bit more informal, rather than putting dear. And you always need to put a comma after who you're writing to. Then on the next line, or you can leave a line, then you're going to ask your rhetorical question. So it might have been, I hope you're doing well, how are you both doing, how are you both feeling? So whichever question that you would like to use, which you've just chosen, which you've just got some examples from, now is the time that you can write your rhetorical question. After that, we're going to put some flattery. So it could be that you put a feeling or an opinion first of all by saying, I am missing you both very much. And then tell them what you're missing most about them. So give them that flattery that you've just discussed. So it could be, especially your extremely large hugs where I feel so safe in your arms, or something along the lines of what they're baking or cooking or reading a book, whatever you really like about this person that will make them feel really good about themselves as well. This is the time to put that. And we can also use a short sentence to have an impact sentence. So they are delicious, so that whoever you are writing to, they know straight away that the food they make is delicious. It's amazing. It's brilliant. So for now, I want you to just do these 3 things or 4 things. Tell me who you're writing to. Use a rhetorical question. Show me an opinion. Tell me the flattery about what you like the most, and a short sentence to really give that impact. Once you have done that, play the video, and then we're going to look at the next part that you're going to put in your introduction paragraph. The next part we're going to do is you're going to tell your grandparents about something that you have been doing over the last few weeks. So you need to have a think first of all. You might want to write some ideas down on a piece of paper. What have you been doing over the last few weeks? It could be something to do with work, schoolwork. It could be something to do you've been doing at home in the garden. It could be something you've done over the half term of the week off. I'd like you to think of something that you've been doing, and I'd like you to write a list first of all to say all the different things you've been doing, because what we're then going to do, you'll write one now, and then as we move on to our next paragraphs, that's when you'll say your next idea of what you've been doing. Now we're going to actually put it all together. So you're going to have some feelings and opinions in here to tell your grandparents or whoever you're writing to how you have felt about the learning, how you have felt towards what you've been doing, your opinion on it, but also telling them exactly what you've been doing. So I have worked hard over the last few weeks completing different maths and literacy activities, and now I can tell the time. So it's not just saying I've been doing lots of maths and literacy, it's actually being a bit more specific on saying exactly what you have been doing. So you've told me exactly that you've been learning to tell the time. Then there is a bit of a feeling and an opinion. This was a real challenge for me. So it's saying how you felt. You found it quite a challenge, but through perseverance, so through determination, through wanting to do better, through keeping going and going, I have finally achieved my target of telling the time using an analog clock. So it's really being specific now about what you've actually learned, how you felt, and actually what the outcome was. So what you can now tell the time. And then we've got who would have thought that there are different types of clocks. Again, that's a rhetorical question. It could be an expressive comment that you're making to say that you never knew that this was. So something that you've really learned. So you've learned to tell the clock at the time, but you didn't know that there were different types of clocks. So using what you have learned over the last few weeks, it might be quite nice in this part here to say something about schoolwork that you could use, and then we can put the other parts in your second and third paragraph. So I'd stick to maybe something that you've done with school, but obviously it is your choice, it's your writing. So I'd like you to now have a go at writing the next part of your introduction paragraph, just like this on the screen, and then play the video after you have done that. Okay, finally, we are going to now go back and up level our paragraphs. So we are going to try and include some words which are called generalizing words. Now, generalizing words are words which we can make a comparison with, we can use to give a little bit extra detail. So there are some examples on the screen. So we've got sometimes, never, usually, always, generally, perhaps, occasionally, the majority, often, in addition, maybe, in general, and presumably. So I'd now like you to see if you can go and include these into your writing. So could you use some generalizing words in your opening paragraph when telling the reader about what you've been doing? So it could be, you could have said, for example, with your opening paragraph, you could have said, sometimes I found it quite difficult learning about how to tell time on an analog clock. And then you could say something like, I'm just looking down my list of what I could say next. Perhaps more practice will help me really deepen this knowledge. Or you can use a different word. So see now if you can first of all go back and reread your opening paragraph. Can you get some generalizing words in? Obviously some will be easier than others to use, so please have a think about which ones will be appropriate. Don't just pick any out and put them in, because obviously we'll need your sentence to read well. And then if you can up-level it even more, so if you can think of better vocabulary, adjectives you might be able to put in, adverbs you might be able to put in as well. So see if you can really go and up-level your paragraphs. And then I'd love to see these on Seesaw. So please do put your work on there so I can have a look and I can give you some feedback as well.